Hi all. Today we will be seeing the new signal-based view queries which has been introduced in Angular 17. So previously I had created a video where I have explained in detail the various view queries which are available in Angular. So it is basically in the Angular 12 version. In case you have not viewed that, please view the video. Today we will be taking a look at how we can convert that project into Angular 17 with the signal-based view queries. The original Angular project which we created, it had an app component, and within that we had multiple components, directives, and services. So here we have an app child component which is consumed within the app component, and we also have an app child directive and also a child service which is basically injected within the child component. So within the app component, we used different ways in which we will be able to query the instance of each of these, like the child component, the child directive, the service, and some special cases like the template reference and child token, etc. So today we will be seeing how we can find an equivalent for this in the new signal-based approach. So in the older version, we made use of decorators, that is at the rate view child and at the rate view children, which is the decorator which we use in case we have multiple elements matching the criteria. So first, let's take a look at this particular query, which makes use of the view child decorator and it queries a child component. So here in the Angular 17 application, it becomes much simpler, and you can see that there is a new function called viewChild which accepts a parameter, and there we can pass the child component. So here it basically returns a signal which is of type child component or undefined. Now let's try displaying that within the ng on init as well as the ng after view init. So one thing to note in the older version of Angular is that when we make use of a decorator, that is a viewChild decorator, we had certain options which can be passed to that decorator. So one of them is the static option, which basically means that the viewChild result of this query, it is usually available in the ng after view init lifecycle of the component. But in case you need to access that earlier within the ng on init, we had an option called static. When enabled, it will query the value within the ng on init itself. Now let's see how the behavior happens within the signal-based approach. So here I have added two consoles within the after view init as well as the on init. So now you can see that both the consoles are logging the value. So it basically means that the value of the query is available in the initial step itself, that is the ng on init. So there is no current option called static which can be passed to the viewChild. So here, if you can see, there is only one option, that is the read option, that is available within the signal-based approach. Similarly, in case you need to query a directive from the view, so in this case the app child directive, you can again make use of the same function, that is viewChild, and pass the directive. So it basically returns a signal with the type child directive or undefined. And here again I have added a console. So here you can see that the child directive instance is queried. Similarly, in the case of injectables which are injected within the child component, so in this scenario we have a child service as well as a child token that is defined within the component. We can make use of the viewChild and we can pass the child service which will return a signal of type child service, and the token which we have defined here, we can pass that child token and we will be getting the instance of that. So here again I have added the console, and once we get the instance of the service, I am calling a method within the service. So it basically logs this message. When we come here, you can see the child service instance here, and the log message is displayed, and here we have the token. So here you would have viewed that the type of that particular signal is given as unknown. So in case you are aware about the type of that particular token, you can pass the type here as a generic, and here you will be able to see that the type is represented as what the type we passed to that view child. In the old versions of Angular, we used to make use of this ng template a lot, especially in case we had to make use of the ng if and else block. But with the advent of the control flow which is introduced in Angular, we might not need to regularly use it. So in this example, I have given an ng template anyway, just to show that we are still able to query the ng template using the view query. So here I have defined an unused template, and here we can pass the template ref to this view child, and it will query the single instance of that ng template from the view. And here I am displaying it again within the after viewing it. So here you can see that the template reference is displayed here. One common way of querying the required element from the view is by making use of a template reference variable like this. So we can provide this variable name anywhere within the view, and we will be able to query that particular element from the component. So we can query that using the name of the variable. Like this, in case of this, it is lm. So I have given that here. And when the result is returned, the result can vary based on the element on which that variable was applied. So in this scenario, since we applied it on a component, the returned value will be a component instance. As you can see here, the child component instance is returned. But in case we wanted to access the element reference of this particular element, that is the app child, we have the option to pass that within the view child. So it is similar to the previous decorator version. We can pass the element ref. Once we save this, you will be able to see that we are getting the reference to the native element. Similarly, another option is the view container ref. So here again we have the view container reference. There can be scenarios in which we apply the same template reference variable to multiple elements. So in this case, I have an if else block. So I am applying the same variable to both the if block as well as the else block. So the thing about this is that based on the use inline value, only one label will be displayed at a time. So when we query, in case the use inline is true, we will get the reference to this element, and if the value is false, we will get the else block reference. So for demonstrating that, I have added a set timeout which toggles the value of the use inline. So initially it will be false and else will be displayed, and after 5 seconds the if will be displayed. So initially when we query the view, we will be receiving the initial value, but we need to have a way in which we will be able to get the updated value when the reference changes. So in the older versions of Angular, we needed to write something like this. Instead of declaring it as a property, we need to create it as a setter, and within the setter we will be able to assign the new value which we receive as the view query. But with the new signal based approach, what we can do is we can write an effect, and within that we can just access the new value. So let us see this in action. Let me refresh the application. So initially you can see that the else block is displayed. Now after 5 seconds, immediately the value changed here, and you can see that the effect got executed, and now it's referencing to the new element. Now we can have a scenario in which we have multiple instances of the same element or same component within the view. So in this scenario, I have an app child component which is being looped multiple times within the view. In case we make use of the view child, we will receive a single instance of this element. But in case we need to query multiple instances of the same element, we have the option called view children, which is available within the old Angular as well. So here we have the decorator at the rate view children, and you can pass the child component so that it will retrieve multiple instances used to return in a query list, and within the query list we will be having the different instances which we will be able to loop through using the map operator. But with the new signal based approach, we have the view children function where we can pass the similar child component class, and here also again we have the read option similar to view child. Now what we can do is we will log this within the after view init, and let's see what is the value. So when we initialize, you can see that we have a list of child component instances. Now again we need to consider the scenario in which we can add dynamic values or dynamic queries in case of multiple instances, that is view children. So here in this example we have this for loop which basically loops over the app child depending on number of entries within the names array. So here initially we have 3 entries within the names array, and in this sample what I am going to do, after 5 seconds I am adding a new entry. So when this happens, we need to get the updated result of the view query. So here again we can make use of the view children, and within the fx, in case we access the new value, we will be getting the updated entry. So here let's see this in action. I'm going to refresh it. Now initially we have 3 entries, and after 5 seconds when the 4th entry is added, automatically the effect is executed and we get the updated result of the view query. The new signal based query option also has a required mode where you can mark that particular view query as a required element. So suppose we do not get a matching result using that query from the view, then it will throw an error. So in this scenario, I have marked both the element as well as the missing as required. Now the element is present within our view, but the missing is not available. So let's see what happens. I am trying to access the missing element within the ng on it. So when we go to our application, you can see that the element which was marked as required and is missing, it is throwing an error. So in case I remove that required, it will just return undefined and there won't be any error. So hope you are able to get a good understanding about the new signal based approach for view queries in Angular. See you soon. Thank you.